We're talking about food plots in March because a lot of food plots are going to fail, and that planning took place right now in March, April. People are hitting the woods, hitting the fields, they're going to plant on their deer habitat, on their land in the springtime, and a lot of those food plots are going to fail, and they're failing before they're even planted. And so we want to make sure that you understand some of these failures and really lies that are in the hunting industry a lot of times. And I don't even want to call them myths or urban legends, because myth implies that it's just something that's common, that has been taken over by everybody. And for example, you can't pee off your tree stand. And just peeing in the woods, you know, that's been passed down by generations. You have to bring a pee bottle. When really, you can just pee in the woods, the deer don't care. That's not necessarily a lie, that's more just a myth that people grow hold of. A lie is more when you have factual information that you can actually pull from, you either don't understand it or you don't try to get other information, and you only teach that little portion of information without even understanding the big picture. And it's an implied lie. It's a lie without knowing or actually coming to an appropriate level of understanding before you even spread that information. And we'll talk about number one. This is a big one. Weedy plots are good. And this is where science can lie a lot of times. There's a lot of studies out there that show, hey, there's more nutrition in a weedy food plot. Deer like a weedy food plot. There's more volume of food in a weedy food plot. You know what? All those might be true during the summer months when deer don't need your food plots. When it comes to the fall, a weedy plot will destroy your plot. They destroy your dreams, your hopes, your plans. You're planting 5 acres of food, you end up with an acre of volume because it's overtaken by weeds. Because if 50% weeds in a plot doesn't just take 50% of the volume, it robs the nutrients the rest of the plants need within the entire plot to actually grow to the maturity level that you expect, to produce the volume that you expect. So really, when you have 50% weeds in a plot, 30% weeds in the plot, the actual extent of the damage to your overall food plot volume is far higher than just that 30 or 50%. It's 90%, it's 80% of the volume that you could potentially produce. And just because some of those studies show that weedy food plots are good during the summertime, always think, how is this going to affect my herd, my hunt, my ability to create a quality herd? That's why I liked when the Quality Deer Management Association was called the Quality Deer Management Association, because it was all focused on quality. That always went back to that root. How can we produce a quality herd? That herd that's maintained balance in the habitat, appropriate sex ratios, adequate buck age structure. How can we get back to those basics? And how can we shape and mold the land in a responsible way to achieve that level of quality? I liked that name, Quality Deer Management Association. It doesn't really matter. My opinion matters nothing. But I liked it when it was Quality Deer Management Association instead of National Deer Alliance. I don't like that, our National Deer Association. Weedy plots are not good. That's a lie, because it's only half the truth. It's saying, okay, they're good during the summer. That's terrible during the fall. And that goes for a lot of burning. So you get a lot of controlled burns within the woods. Produces a lot of herbaceous green growth. It's not producing woody growth. It's not producing hardwood regeneration, briars that deer need during the actual fall. That overall combination where you're cutting down trees, getting the hardwood regeneration, putting sunlight on the ground. I see a lot of controlled burns within shady woodlots. There's certain herbaceous green plants that will grow in there, and deer will like them, but once they die, they dry out, frost hits them in the fall, they're of zero value, and then you have zero cover within that shaded out woods, and you really didn't help the deer herd in any way. Number 2, just do TSI. Timber stand improvement. So I see, unfortunately, there's people out there saying you just need to do timber stand improvement, that's better than food plots. They don't have the experience level to make that recommendation, because if they did on private land, food plots always come first. What we did out here is we practiced, we figured out where we could put food, where we could put safely, when we're not going to infringe on those during the deer season. We can move around those, we can even hunt some of them without spooking deer off of them. We can hide them on our approach. And then we work on the cover that relates to that, because if you don't have those food sources, you don't have deer living in that cover, no matter how much timber stand improvement that you practice. Even if you create oak regeneration, you create the opportunity for chestnuts, you plant fruit trees on the property. It's never going to build a deer herd, define a deer herd, grow a deer herd, or produce any type of quality hunting or quality herd dynamics alone. the food plots do, and then everything else falls in line after that. So we have food plots, we locate bedding areas, and then now in year 3 we're working on more, how can we prune our apple trees and make them better? How can we look at planting shrubs or other species habitat that can complement the solid foundation that you currently have or already have? And so practicing timber stand improvement to me is almost like putting the interior walls of the house up, but you don't have the foundation set, you don't have the outside walls, you don't have the foundation of movement set on the land because you don't have that ultimate food source. Because again, if someone within a mile of you plants quality food plots and has a quality food plot program that they don't push deer off during the daylight, then they're going to be the ones seeing those deer during the daylight. They're going to be the ones molding and shaping the herd for better or for worse, depending on your goals or what you'd like. And it's amazing because they can do that there, you can do it on your land, and you can have some semblance of control throughout the hunting season to a level you probably don't imagine, because most people don't have unpressured food plots that become daylight food plots during the hunting season. So that's the ultimate goal. And then you use the TSI to complement an already great foundation of movement between bedding and food sources. So you can't just do TSI when it comes to food plots. Number 3, you need summer food. Now, this one's a tough one because I see a lot of people that push summer food either or they don't understand the whole relationship of the hunting aspect. They're not shooting a lot of those deer. There's a lot of people out there that in the deer hunting industry, habitat industry, where they're making recommendations to people's land, but they never shoot or hunt or experience quality deer herds. They're hunters, but they don't prove themselves. And if you're not really looking at that whole relationship between what I'm doing and how it relates to that quality herd during the fall and what can I do different, then you understand what you can do different. If you don't experience it, how can you teach others? And so when you look at summer food, it sounds good. We're going to increase the summer food, might increase lactation rates, maybe fawn recruitment, put a few more antlers on a buck, put weight on a buck, but those deer are dead if they're shot on someone else's land. If you can't hold them, attract them. Really, when you understand there's 5 times more food during the summertime in most areas in the north half of the country, north 2/3, then you'll find those summer food plots aren't really helping the deer herd. And then at the same time, you can put too many does on your land because those does are here today, are here to stay. If you're producing quality fall and winter cover, then you're creating that doe factory where you're pushing a large number of does onto the property during the summer. They stay into the fall and they actually take up space. And yes, does do that. The more does you have on the land does not equal the more bucks. To a certain level, I always talk about that. So as the number of does goes up, so does the number of bucks, to a balancing point right here. The problem is once you hit that balancing point, as the number of does go up, the number of bucks goes down. You have to hit that balance point. There is a certain number of does that you want because the does will tell you that the habitat's attractive during the fall. If the does aren't there, then why would the bucks be? There's got to be a certain number of does for that balance. And of course, during the rut, those bucks will look for does. They don't want an overabundance of does because it's highly stressful and you're going to limit the number of bucks that you have. Summer food is a bad thing. I see a lot of the people push the summer food, sell summer food. So they want to make sure they hit their sales goals and they're selling whatever XYZ product that they're pushing during the summer months to get you to open up your wallet and look at it like, boy, if I'm going to attain my whitetail dreams, I'm going to have a summer food plot. Look at it this way. I don't have summer food plots, and I do this for a living. And I get paid to be right. I get paid a lot of money to be right when it comes to clients and giving good advice. If I thought I needed summer food plots out here, I'd have them out here. I have 15.5 acres of plots this year with corn and greens. It's all slanted towards the fall because I want to build a quality herd, a quality hunt. I want to have the best herd in the area, and I want to have a daylight herd. And I want to create habitat improvements that actually matter and aren't wasting my time. So if I thought summer food, that's what they did before I came here. They had summer food, they had beans. It was here, they had 5 acres, it was down to the dirt by October 1st, and most of the real estate pictures were velvet bucks. I talk about that all the time. We reversed that in 1 year. It was the second year last year. It's exponential growth. The number of mature bucks are going to be on the land next year. And then also, we're still using no food, and we're not going to use any food in this year 3. And it's amazing the results that we're getting. We can turn around that very quick. And that's my ultimate goal is, man, if your land or mine, I want to make sure you get the best out of it. Number 4, you need XYZ in every plot. For example, I've had people say you need to have soybeans in 20% of all your food plots. That's bogus. You need to have brassica in all your food plots. You need to have rye. I talk about using rye all the time in food plots. You have to have corn. I use corn. You have to have clover at a certain percentage. Folks, what you need on your land is very complex when it comes to food plots. You need to consider what your neighbors have, how many deer you have in the area. Is yours an ag area or not? What are your planting resources? How much time do you have? Do you have open ground that you can easily put food plots in? Are you going to use herbicides or not? There's a lot of factors that you need to consider, and let alone what region you're in, what kind of soil you have, before you even consider giving a recommendation for what type of food. So when someone says you have to have this percentage of this food source in every single food plot, immediately run. You need to have, there's kitchen sink blends out there where people just put all these different seeds that don't go together in a blend, and you have to have that. You know, people talk about rye is good, wheat's good, so brassica is good, so let's add them together. Those two need to be planted a month apart. You don't put them in the same mix because one will outcompete the other. They both fight each other for nutrients. They're not complementary products like brassica is to clover. I started planting brassica and clover blends and writing about it back in the late 90s, early 2000s. They're a great complementary blend because they don't fight for the same nutrients. But bottom line is, there's a lot to consider. One of the questions that's really tough, and I know down in the comments right now, people are going to put this just for the fun of it, but someone will say, I have 3 acres to plant in North Carolina. What should I plant? And just leave it at that. When we meet with clients, that's an hour conversation throughout the day that involves all those aspects before we make a solid recommendation. Now, there's some generalities. If there's in the Midwest, and there's ag, and they have 3 or 4 acres of food plots, and they have adequate planting equipment, there might be some general recommendations that we make that are similar, but there might be a wrench in there. Well, we can only plant an acre. We don't have this type of equipment. Our neighbors have this, so we need this. Those are things we'll figure. But boy, from north to south, east to west, from big woods to wilderness, to open ag, to mid-ag, there's a lot that can be done differently from one food plot to another. So there's no absolutes when it comes to food plot. For example, I like brassica. I don't recommend it on every parcel. In fact, probably a third, 20%, 25%, depending on the year. I like rye. I don't recommend rye on every parcel. I like wheat. I don't recommend wheat. I like beans sometimes. You know, beans are a great summer crop for building a herd and then spraying herbicide on it and getting rid of weeds before an actual true fall planting. I like corn. Not everyone should need corn. It's kind of like hinge cuts. Hinge cuts are an appropriate, adequate, smart tool in the habitat bucket that smart habitat managers use, but they should never be used on every property. We recommend them about 20% of the time. Dylan, I think I asked you already this about a month ago maybe. How many times have you recommended? We've both been on, December, January, February. Let's say we've been on about 30 properties. I've been on about 30 because I had December. You've been probably on 20? Or
yeah, probably 20.
How many times have you recommended hinge cutting?
I think I've recommended it on 3 or 4 properties, but it's very specific.
Yes.
And it's the same for corn. Like you just mentioned corn. I think I've recommended corn on 3 or 4 properties as well.
Yeah. It just kind of shows, I mean, a lot of these things are, you have to consider so much miscanthus grass. I don't recommend it a lot, but where it's needed, it's awesome. So, but when it comes to absolutes and food plots and what you should plant, there's no easy recipe. And typically when someone's online and they're saying, yeah, you should plant this blend from this company, it just means you're getting free seed from that company, and that's why they're recommending it. And it's unfortunate because that's the way the hunting industry is. Now with everybody. Number 5, and I forget what you said about this, kind of like just get something growing. Yeah. That's kind of the recommendation.
Yeah. Anything is better than nothing.
Yeah. So I had these 4 written out, and Dylan's kind of like, yeah, anything's better than nothing. That should be number 5. And it's so true. I go to people that literally, and I can admit I did this back in 2002, 2003, somewhere around there, 4 or 5, where we went to, big box store, and XYZ was on seed was on sale, so we just bought that. There's so much more to consider than just getting something green on the ground. If you want something green on the ground, just throw some annual or some perennial rye, like ryegrass. You could keep it like a lawn, mow it, keep it. The deer won't eat it, except in rare circumstances. There are places when you get down the south where, and there's excessive deer numbers, that perennial rye is one of the only things that keeps up with the constant grazing that deer will have on a plot. But then you look at it like, well, maybe they should get rid of the summer food so they don't have as many does. That's the first step in removing does or reducing population, is not trigger control, it's getting rid of summer food. But bottom line, there's areas where you have perennial rye that can work in an area like that, and someone will see what works there, so they make that recommendation everywhere. And I've seen even habitat consultants do that, and that's bad. Now we have habitat consultants that recommend hinge cutting everywhere they go, every property they go. Bottom line, just because it's green, just because it grows, just because you can plant it, get it to grow, doesn't mean it's a good thing for your food plots. On this channel, we have probably 250, well over 200 food plot strategy videos. And if you look through those, you can start to get a sense. Look up 2016 best food plot mix, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. We'll do a 22 this year. And we talk about some of the evolutions to my own food plotting and what I recommend and what you might do in your land versus another land, big woods versus big ag, and some of those factors to consider for what you would actually plant. Just because it's green doesn't mean it's a good thing. Just because XYZ person recommended online doesn't mean it's a good thing. All these right here, weeds are bad. TSI can replace food plots, it cannot, unless you just don't care about results. Number 3, you need summer food. That's not true no matter what person is pushing that seed or what rationale they're giving. Summer food does more harm than good. And again, I'd have it. I could plant it for free if I wanted to on the land here. As far as anything outside of fertilizer costs, maybe some herbicide. So, common food plot lies. Hopefully you're not getting sucked in by any of these. And I want you to have success this year with your food plots, but not only your food plots, your deer habitat, and certainly your hunt, because you're doing this, and you're making your plans in March, April, and you're getting good guidance along the way, you're making smart decisions, then you're going to be ahead of the curve. I don't want you to see you go 3 or 4 years of beating your head against the wall and finally say, you know what, this stuff clicks. I wish we would have done this a different way. And some say that's the fun of it. I say good results are the fun of it, or the fun portion of this and the great part of this. And I want to see you have great success this fall. Folks, I want to make sure you check out my web class video series, whether it's how to design your food plot program or how to design your property in general. And we have a new one coming out that'll be how to hunt the rut. But these bucks back here are a testament. Some of these bucks go back to 93. They're even in different states. I urge you to check out those web classes that you can help yourself, help your land, help your hunt. The link is in the description. And also for those that have tried them out, I encourage you to offer some feedback in the comments below. Thank you.